Hello and welcome back to the Phoenix YouTube channel, and welcome to another tier list video. Now last time I was of course doing a tier list on all the Saudi Arabia pay-per-view main events. This time it's just the pay-per-view, so we're taking in the main events and the rest of the matches on the cards. I have them ordered at the bottom here in chronological order, so from the Greatest Royal Rumble in 2018 to King and Queen of the Ring from 2 weeks ago. Now we are going to start with the Greatest Royal Rumble from 2018. Matches on this card: John Cena versus Triple H. So this is in 2018, so both men not in their prime. Triple H very much not in his prime. Although it wasn't as long as the DX Brothers of Destruction and far less failures and injuries. It was just, you know, mediocre, 15 minutes. So I'm not annoyed that it happened. It's just all right, really. We then have other matches such as the IC Triple Threat from WrestleMania, but with Samoa Joe shoved in there. AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Now that match had a double count out, so that is going to knock this pay-per-view down. We had The Undertaker and Rusev in a casket match, which went on for less than 10 minutes. We also have Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns in the steel cage match, where obviously Roman speared Brock Lesnar through the cage, controversial finish. And we have the Greatest Royal Rumble itself, which of course Braun Strowman won, last eliminating Big Cass. Now overall, the pay-per-view's got 10 matches. Not all of them are terrible. There are some good matches on there. The IC Fatal 4-Way's fun, and John Cena defeating Triple H was a fun enough match. And the Greatest Royal Rumble, as much as it goes on too long and it's a bit boring, it's still a Royal Rumble match. So I'm going to put the pay-per-view in F. I'm probably going to put it in C tier. It's between C or D, and I think I'm just going to put it in C for now, although it could change. We then have Crown Jewel 2018, which of course was headlined by D-Generation X versus the Brothers of Destruction. Now, so far, just from that match, it's an F tier, but maybe the rest of the card's good. Maybe that could somehow salvage it. So, also on this card is the whole WWE World Cup. All these matches were pretty short. In fact, apart from the main event, which is almost half an hour long, every single match really falls around the 10-minute mark. Not exactly the best sign for a pay-per-view. Now, we do have Dolph Ziggler versus Seth Rollins on this card as well for the World Cup. But the World Cup is, of course, most remembered for Shane McMahon winning in the finals to be declared the best in the world. So, no, that is not going to bring the pay-per-view up, is it? And also that match was 2.5 minutes. We also have Brock Lesnar versus Braun Strowman for the vacant Universal title, which went on for precisely 1 minute and 15 seconds. No, this card deserves to be in F tier. Then on to Super Showdown 2019. Of course, this card is infamous for Goldberg versus The Undertaker, but that was not the only match on the card. We also had a 51-man Battle Royal, which was won by Mansoor for no reason. Kofi Kingston defended the world title against Dolph Ziggler. You'd think that would make me love this card, but no, it is not enough to save it. We have the Lucha House Party losing a 3-on-1 handicap match against Lars Sullivan. We have Roman Reigns losing by pinfall to Shane McMahon. Seth Rollins versus Baron Corbin for the Universal title, and they did that match multiple times. And Randy Orton versus Triple H, which, unlike the Cena one, did not go 15 minutes. It went just over 25 minutes. No, this card deserves to be near the bottom. Now, it's not as bad as this card. Not as bad as Crown Jewel 2018, but I think it is still in F tier. I mean, The Undertaker Goldberg as its main event. You have Shane McMahon beating Roman Reigns. You have a 25-minute Randy Orton Triple H match. And the other matches aren't even that good on the card either. I think it has to be F tier. It's either F or D, but I'm going to stick it in F. We then have Crown Jewel 2019. Now, this is actually the card where Brock Lesnar faced Cain Velasquez in WWE, which went 2 minutes. We also had Tyson Fury versus Braun Strowman, which ended by countout. Natalya versus Lacey Evans, though, the first women's match in Saudi Arabia, only went 7 minutes. Team Hogan versus Team Flair. Why was this a thing? 20 minutes long. And then the main event, The Fiend versus Seth Rollins. Not the worst, but certainly not great, especially with the red lights. I'm going to say this card isn't as bad as the other F tiers, but it isn't as good as the Greatest Royal Rumble, and so it goes in D tier. Now we have Super Showdown 2020. Of course, we have Goldberg versus The Fiend, which went 3 minutes, which is almost twice as long as the Brock Lesnar versus Ricochet match, which only lasted 1 minute 35 seconds. Of course, Brock Lesnar won. Can you imagine if Ricochet beat Brock Lesnar in 1.5 minutes? We also had the 2-weight trophy match where The Undertaker won despite not even being an entrant in the match. We also have Roman Reigns in another steel cage match, this time against King Corbin. Oh great. This card is just awful. I think it's between the bottom of D and the top of F. So put it there. You're not getting benefit of the doubt. You have 2 world title matches that are 3 minutes and 1.5 minutes. That's awful. Crown Jewel 2021, the first Saudi show post-COVID. Now this is also the first good Saudi show, I would argue. We have the amazing Edge versus Seth Rollins, which, should it be the only match on the card, would immediately put this pay-per-view in S. That is probably the best match to ever take place in Saudi. Mansoor versus Mustafa Ali, which I believe featured the random kickboxer man. One of my personal favourite Saudi moments. Zelina Vega defeating Doudrop to win the Queen's Crown tournament in just over 5 minutes. Goldberg versus Bobby Lashley was very fun and way better than it had any right being. Probably due to the no-holds-barred Falls Count Anywhere stipulation. We have Xavier Woods defeating Finn Balor in the King of the Ring finals. Big E versus Drew McIntyre, where Big E actually won a match as champion. Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks in a triple threat. And Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. Yes, it involved title belt shenanigans, but the pay-per-view overall, I think for a Saudi show, deserves to be an S tier. Which takes us to Elimination Chamber 2022. Much shorter card for this pay-per-view. We have a pre-show match with Rey Mysterio beating The Miz, very forgettable. The first match on the actual card, though, is Roman Reigns beating Goldberg by technical submission. He made Goldberg pass out while in the guillotine, and to this day, that is Goldberg's last match. I thought this match was a decent start to the pay-per-view. Not as good as the match against Bobby that Goldberg had, but still a solid match. Bianca Belair also won a Women's Elimination Chamber match against Alexa Bliss, Doudrop, Liv Morgan, Nikki ASH, and Rhea Ripley. Naomi and Ronda Rousey defeated Charlotte Flair and Sonya Deville by submission in a match where Ronda Rousey had to wrestle with one arm behind her back due to Sonya Deville having a quote-unquote broken arm. Drew McIntyre defeated Madcap Moss. This had no right to be on a pay-per-view, even with the Falls Count Anywhere stipulation. This might be the one where Madcap Moss gets thrown on his neck. I'm not sure. I think it is, though. Becky Lynch versus Lita was also on the card, as was the Men's Elimination Chamber match where Brock beat everyone. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the main event, although it's still an Elimination Chamber match. I'd say that overall, this pay-per-view was a B tier. Better than Greatest Royal Rumble, but doesn't deserve to be any higher. Arguably, maybe it could be top of C, but I will give it a B tier. Then on to Crown Jewel 2022, the first Saudi show as part of the Renaissance era. We start off with Brock Lesnar beating Bobby Lashley in 6 minutes, but it's an interesting finish to the match. It's the one where Brock escapes the Hurt Lock by pinning Bobby. Very unique finish, very enjoyable match. Damage Control beating Alexa Bliss and Asuka for the tag titles. Alexa and Asuka, what a weird time for the women's tag titles and the women's division in general, and a weird time for Asuka and Alexa Bliss in general. Drew McIntyre versus Karrion Kross in a steel cage match. Oh dear. Braun Strowman versus Omos, which of course led to Braun Strowman tweeting about flippy floppers. Bianca Belair versus Bayley, which of course had the golf cart. And Roman Reigns beating Logan Paul. Now, the Roman Reigns versus Logan Paul match alone has to be considered S tier. Bianca Belair versus Bayley, very solid, and will keep the card up at that height. The Usos Brawling Brutes, not as good. Braun Strowman versus Omos, solid match. The Judgment Day versus OC, though, not really that enjoyable, but alright for 14 minutes. Drew McIntyre versus Karrion Kross, not the best. I think that for a Saudi show, this should also be an S tier, but not quite as high as Crown Jewel 2021. Then we have Night of Champions 2023. Now this is the one with, of course, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn defeating Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa with the Uso turn. That alone, again, would put the pay-per-view in S tier. We have Brock Lesnar making Cody Rhodes pass out. I believe that's the match with the Titanium cast. God, that was stupid. We have Rhea Ripley defeating Natalya in 1 minute and 10 seconds. That was a fun addition to the card, which didn't need to be there. Asuka beating Bianca Belair for the women's title. Gunther beating Mustafa Ali in a solid enough match. Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch. And Seth Rollins versus AJ Styles for the World Heavyweight title. This is, of course, the pay-per-view which they advertised as having 3 main events. And I think the card overall does enough to stay in S tier again. And I think it might just do enough to overtake Crown Jewel 2022. So it'll go there. We're now on to Crown Jewel 2023. Now the main event was Roman Reigns versus LA Knight for 20 minutes, when we knew that Roman Reigns was going to win. Not the best match, but solid enough. Cody Rhodes versus Damian Priest, not the best match, but solid enough. Same for Io Sky versus Bianca Belair. Although Logan Paul versus Rey Mysterio is a little step up, still a similar story, and it is the match where Logan Paul won the US title, which he still has only defended twice to this day. We have Solo Sikoa versus John Cena, which was a weird match to watch, but solid. Then we have Rhea Ripley winning that fatal 5-way for the women's title, fun enough. Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre was a good match, not as good as their WrestleMania match though. Overall, this card is not enough to get into S with these ones, but better than Elimination Chamber. I'm going to give this one an A tier, which leaves us with King and Queen of the Ring 2024. Now this pay-per-view has the least matches. Yes, it has a pre-show match for the women's tag titles, but apart from that there's only 5 other matches. Cody Rhodes versus Logan Paul was good, but not as good as Roman Reigns versus Logan Paul. Gunther versus Orton was very solid, until the pinfall. Nia Jax versus Lyra Valkyria would have been good, but the crowd energy wasn't there. Sami Zayn versus Chad Gable and Bronson Reed, that was a very good match, best match on the card. So the opening match where Liv Morgan beats Becky for the title, very good. We have the IC Triple Threat, best match on the card. Because of the crowd energy being dead for the Queen of the Ring match, because of the botched pinfall at the end of the Gunther Orton match, and because of the Ibrahim Al-Hajjaj interruption in the last match, this pay-per-view can't be on the level of these, and it's instead going to be on the level of Crown Jewel 2023. I think King of the Ring does enough to get ahead of Crown Jewel, just because there are multiple matches which are worth rewatching from this, whereas this one, slightly more forgettable. With that said, this is where I'm going to leave the tier list. I think I have made this tier list public, so you can go and edit and make your own ones. If you want to see more content like this, more tier lists, please subscribe to this channel and the second channel. And also comment what tier lists you'd like to see me do in the future. With that said, if you have made it to the end, thank you for watching, and see you next time.